The question is, what is the best way to organize your literature before writing the review? So, Matthew, how do we go about putting together all that information that we've collected before we put pen to paper or fingers to keyboard?
Yeah. So I like to think about really two ways of structuring a literature review. And it kind of depends on what kind of study you're doing, what kind of dissertation you're building out. The first way to think about your literature review is a chronological orientation. So we're going to go back to the beginning. We're going to find the oldest literature that we've got. We're going to talk about that literature first, and we're going to kind of sort it into buckets, into eras. And a lot of times there's pretty clear cut lines that you'll start to find about where those eras start to fall. So that's one good way to do that. If you're going to do that, what I always recommend is that we're taking notes. I always recommend taking notes in a spreadsheet because we can add other tags and filters and we can do that sort of thing. And so we're going to kind of tag our notes by era along the way. That way we can sort and get a very clear picture of what those eras look like. People often ask me, like, well, what do you mean by era? So you might have like pre-industrialization, the industrial era, the technology era, a post-COVID era, right? So being able to put things in spectrum. You might also have theory-based eras, and so you might have here's sort of version A of this theory, then this guy came in and made version B, then this lady came in and made version C. So you could kind of structure them that way chronologically. Another way to structure your literature review is thematic. And so, in a thematic review, what I kind of tell people to do is think about it almost like qualitative coding that you learned how to do in your qualitative methods class. So, we take our notes again in a spreadsheet. That's how I like to do it. Then, over in the next column, I'm going to kind of give a qualitative code to my notes that identifies different themes along the way. Then I can sort my literature by the themes and kind of think through, okay, I've got theme A, theme B, theme C. What order do these need to go in? How do I then move these into my paper? So if you really set yourself up front with a thoughtful and intentional note taking process, then being able to sort of sort these out into categories and then place those categories in sort of an organizational flow becomes much simpler. The last thing I'll say is don't feel like you're locked in to your organization. I have a lot of clients who come to me, they've spent a lot of time organizing, and then their advisor is like, no, none of this makes any sense. And so sometimes we have to get that round of feedback, understand what kind of organization our advisor has in their mind, how they're interpreting it, and then respond to that. And just remember that responding to that advisor feedback is part of the dissertation process. And so it's not something like, don't let that weigh you down. You're supposed to get critical feedback from your advisor. That's their whole purpose. And the whole reason for existing is to give you critical feedback to make your dissertation the best it can be. And just know that sometimes in organization, we have to do some cut and pasting. We have to move some things around.
I think that's really helpful. Chronological is very useful when you're looking at the development of a theory or a concept over time. The thematic is much more useful when you're looking at maybe multiple research constructs. So maybe you have self-efficacy and you have confidence, those are the same thing, and you have two other constructs. So you might theme those into the constructs and then deal with each construct and then synthesize those constructs together at the end and sort of talk about that. The other thing that's also important to think about when you're planning how to put your literature together is you want to be always pulling out your point. So you should be starting a chapter, paragraph, a section with a key point, then providing the that supports that, and then integrating that with the rest of the literature and synthesizing it and the so what. And that's often enough in the literature review going to be pointing out the gaps in what the research that has already been done. What are the gaps? What are the limitations? And in a really good literature review, that's going to immediately point you towards why your research is necessary as well. And so always think about planning out your structure before you put pen to paper. But also, as Matthew said, don't get stuck on that structure. Build it out and then write it. Then read your draft, see how that flow goes. And if the flow isn't smooth or isn't connecting nicely, then you can make modifications as well.